So today I'm going to talk about a prophet must obey the direct word of the Lord. And this is from 1 Kings chapter 13. So read along with me here in the King James Version. And behold, there came a man of God out of Judah by the word of the Lord unto Bethel, and Jeroboam stood by the altar to burn incense. And he cried against the altar in the word of the Lord, and said, O altar, altar, thus saith the Lord, Behold, a child shall be born unto the house of David, Josiah by name, and upon thee shall he offer the priests of the high places that burn incense upon thee, and men's bones shall be burnt upon thee. And he gave a sign the same day, saying, This is the sign which the Lord hath spoken. Behold, the altar shall be rent, and the ashes that are upon it shall be poured out. Rent like rent in two, split in two. And the ashes that are upon it shall be poured out. And it came to pass, when King Jeroboam heard the saying of the man of God, which had cried against the altar in Bethel, that he put forth his hand from the altar, saying, Lay hold of him. And his hand, which he put forth against him, dried up, so that he could not pull it in again to him. The altar also was rent, and the ashes poured out from the altar, according to the sign which the man of God had given by the word of the Lord. Notice, it's not just a word of the Lord. It is a word of the Lord that has come to a man of God. And a man of God is someone who is dedicated to God, not only in side, but also in righteousness. And how do we know that? Well, we know that from the book of Jacob, aka James. So here we've got the book of James, and we can look here in chapter 5, verse 16, the effectual, fervent prayer of a righteous man availeth much. Very critical principle in the scripture. If your prayers are not being answered, it's because you're not righteous. If you want your prayers answered more effectively, you must be more fervent with your prayers, but that only has effect in righteousness. So if you are walking righteously and you offer fervent prayer, then it will be effectual. The effectual, fervent prayer of a righteous man avails much. 17. Elias, that's Elijah, was a man subject to like passions as we are, and he prayed earnestly that it might not rain, and it rained not on the earth by the space of 3 years and 6 months. They're saying that Elijah was a righteous man. And biblically, we know that is true. We know that is true. He's only one of two people in the Old Testament that were taken up and did not taste death. The other being Enoch, who walked with God. So here's Elijah also. He's the example of the righteous man whose effectual, fervent prayer availed much. So, and Elijah was a prophet. He's the example. Prophets are supposed to be righteous men because they're supposed to be able to hear from God. If you can hear from God, then you know what to pray in order to be effective in your prayer. Because when you pray the will of God, it will happen. If you pray against the will of God, it will not happen. So it's all one unit. Knowing God's will by hearing Him, but hearing Him by being a righteous man. Do you think God will confide in you if you are an evil man, if you are sinning? No, of course He won't. So we're in verse 5. The altar also was rent, and the ashes poured out from the altar, according to the sign which the man of God, we now see must be righteous, had given by the word of the Lord. And the king answered and said unto the man of God, Entreat now the face of the Lord thy God, and pray for me, that my hand may be restored me again. So even the king knew that because this man was a man of God, that he was righteous and that God would listen to him. Because he asked him, he says, please, ask God right now, face to face with God, and pray for me that my hand may be restored. And the man of God besought the Lord, and the king's hand was restored him again, and became as it was before. Verse 7. And the king said unto the man of God, Come home with me, and refresh thyself, and I will give thee a reward. So he wanted to bless him somehow. 8. And the man of God said unto the king, If thou wilt give me half thine house, I will not go in with thee, neither will I eat bread nor drink water in this place. For so was it charged me by the word of the Lord, saying, so he was commanded by the word of the Lord, saying, Eat no bread, nor drink water, nor turn again by the same way that thou camest. So he went another way, and returned not by the way that he came to Bethel. Now we get to the very interesting part. Verse 11. Now there dwelt an old prophet in Bethel, and his sons came and told him all the works that the man of God had done that day in Bethel, the words which he had spoken unto the king. Them they told also to their father. And their father said unto them, What way went he? For his sons had seen what way the man of God went, which came from Judah. And he said unto his sons, Saddle me the ass, the donkey. So they saddled him the ass, and he rode thereon, and went after the man of God, and found him sitting under an oak. And he said unto him, Art thou the man of God that camest from Judah? And he said, I am. Then he said unto him, Come home with me, and eat bread. And he said, I may not return with thee, nor go in with thee, neither will I eat bread, nor drink water with thee in this place. For it was said to me by the word of the Lord. So he says it again. Thou shalt eat no bread, nor drink water there, nor turn again to go by the way that thou camest. So he says it the same. He said unto him, I am a prophet, also as thou art. And remember, he's older, right? And an angel spake unto me by the word of the Lord, saying, Bring him back with thee into thine house, that he may eat bread and drink water. So he directly contradicts the word of the Lord that came to that other prophet. It says, But he lied unto him. So this prophet lied to this man of God. Now notice it doesn't say this old prophet was a man of God, does it? So back here. Now there dwelt an old prophet in Bethel. It doesn't say he was a man of God. All right. So 19. So he went back with him and did eat bread in his house and drank water. So he broke the command of the word of the Lord. This old prophet was not a man of God, but this younger one was. And it came to pass, as they sat at the table, that the word of the Lord came unto the prophet that brought him back. So this is the word of the Lord actually coming to him now. And he cried unto the man of God that came from Judah, saying, Thus saith the Lord, Forasmuch as thou hast disobeyed the mouth of the Lord, and hast not kept the commandment which the Lord thy God commanded thee, but camest back, and hast eaten bread and drunk water in the place of the which the Lord did say to thee, Eat no bread and drink no water. Thy carcass shall not come unto the sepulchre of thy fathers, the place where they bury the dead, sepulchre. Thy carcass, your dead body, shall not come to the place where your fathers are buried. And it came to pass, after he had eaten bread, and after he had drunk, that he saddled for him the ass, to wit, for the prophet whom he had brought back. So he saddled up this donkey for him. And when he was gone, a lion met him by the way and slew him, killed him. And his carcass was cast in the way, in the road. And the ass stood by it. The lion also stood by the carcass. And behold, men passed by and saw the carcass cast in the way, and the lion standing by the carcass, and they came and told it in the city where the old prophet dwelt. And when the prophet that brought him back from the way heard thereof, he said, It is a man of God, who was disobedient unto the word of the Lord. Therefore the Lord hath delivered him unto the lion, which hath torn him and slain him, according to the word of the Lord, which he spake unto him, which the old prophet spoke unto him. So because he was disobedient to the word of the Lord, he was handed over to the lion. 27. And he spake to his sons, saying, Saddle me the ass. And they saddled him. And he went and found his carcass cast in the way, and the ass and the lion standing by the carcass. The lion had not eaten the carcass, nor torn the ass. Verse 29. And the prophet took up the carcass of the man of God, and laid it upon the ass, and brought it back. And the old prophet came to the city to mourn and to bury him. He even mourned for him. Even though he disobeyed the word of the Lord, he mourned for him. Verse 30. And he laid his carcass in his own grave, and they mourned over him. So not only did he mourn over him, but they mourned over him, he and his sons, saying, Alas, my brother. So he called him his brother. And it came to pass, after he had buried him, that he spake to his sons, saying, When I am dead, then bury me in the sepulchre wherein the man of God is buried. Lay my bones beside his bones. For the saying which he cried by the word of the Lord against the altar in Bethel, and against all the houses of the high places which are in the cities of Samaria, shall surely come to pass. After this thing Jeroboam returned not from his evil way, but made again of the lowest of the people priests of the high places. Whosoever would, he consecrated him, and became one of the priests of the high places. And this thing became sin unto the house of Jeroboam, even to cut it off, and to destroy it from off the face of the earth. This thing that Jeroboam returned back to his evil ways, and did this, caused his entire house to be cut off of the face of the earth. It ended. That was the end of the line for his lineage. His descendants, period. Finished. Because he took from the lowest people and made priests of the high places. Whoever would be consecrated by him, he made him a priest. And this became a sin for him. But notice the old prophet treated the man of God as a brother, even to the point of wanting to be buried with him, like honoring him or being honored by him. But at any rate, he didn't completely reject him because he disobeyed the word of the Lord. But because he disobeyed the word of the Lord, he certainly died. So, the point is this, is that you must obey the word of the Lord when it comes directly to you, no matter what anyone else says. If it is the word of the Lord, you must obey it. Of course, you need to determine whether it's a lying spirit or not. You can see our other video up over here about the lying spirit that God sent to deceive 400 prophets against one true prophet. So, and it doesn't matter what this other person says. I heard from an angel that this, and this. An angel spoke to me from God, or God spoke to me directly, and I know his voice. I've never made a mistake on God's voice. I know for certain his voice, and they tell you what God said for you to do. but you heard God directly. You do what God said directly to you. Do not waver. Don't turn to the left or to the right. You stay right on course. This man of God, even though he was a man of God, he made a fatal mistake. And it's one mistake, and he died. That's how serious the word of the Lord is. So you dreamers of dreams, and you prophets out there who are blabbing on prophecies, and you dreamers who are blabbing about dreams, you're not being cautious enough or fearful enough. Because if God tells you one thing and you don't do it, you know, he might cause you to be handed over to the lion to be torn asunder. And there was a prophet recently that I reviewed, that's one of our 9 prophets up to this point, who she said in her video that God told her to stop making videos, that was the end of the ministry. And that was a video that was at least 6 months, maybe 9 months before the video that I was watching where she's talking about the bride of Christ. And she's talking about some dream. So she has openly disobeyed the word of the Lord, if that was the word of the Lord. Even if it wasn't, she believed it was. It cannot be that way. It cannot be that way. We don't know if that man of God was saved after all. He might have lost his salvation at that point. We don't know. And I don't want to play with fire like that. I don't want to risk losing my salvation because I refused to obey the word of the Lord when I clearly knew it. He knew it because he told 2 other people exactly the same thing. He knew exactly what he was not supposed to do. And yet here's this old prophet, more seasoned than him, older than him, claiming to hear from the Lord, exactly the opposite. That should tell you something right there. God spoke to you directly, you did it, and those miracles happened of the altar being rent in two, and of Jeroboam's hand being withered and then being restored. You know you are hearing the voice of the Lord. You're hearing the word of the Lord. You know that. If nothing else, by the miracles, you know that. And here's this man who's speaking directly opposing that word of the Lord, claiming it's from an angel speaking the word of the Lord. You know that that's not true. He knew in all ways that that was not true. And yet he still went back with that man. Although he was a man of God, there was something in his heart that wanted to be deceived. There was something in his heart that wanted to be deceived. And God allowed that test to test his heart. And you know how he landed? Face down in the road, mauled by a lion. He failed the test. Will you pass the test? When God sends a test to test the purity of your heart, will you pass that test? Even if you were a man of God, a woman of God, a prophet, a prophetess, a dreamer of dreams, hearing from God, he may still send a test to test your heart. What's he testing? Blessed are the pure, for they shall see God. He's testing you exactly on this point of your so-called ministry. Are you pure in heart? Because that is more important than your ministry. It's more important that your heart is pure and that you will pass the final judgment than if you speak a word of the Lord to the public. And if your heart is not pure, stop making these videos until you get your heart pure. Then see what God has to say to you. But keep your heart pure. Proverbs says, guard the heart above all things because it is the wellspring of life. It is the wellspring of life. Blessed are the pure, for they shall see God. Guard the heart, because it is the wellspring of life. Prophets, dreamers of dreams, speakers of words of the Lord, stop making your videos. I'm challenging you for 2 weeks. Stop making your videos. Go into your inner chambers with the Lord. Ask Him to test your heart. Ask Him to refine your heart. Ask Him to purify your hearts. Then you will truly, truly see God. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God.